I'm Dr. Samantha Rush, and I am absolutely honoured to be the host of this podcast and also the creator of Marvellous Women cards. The Marvellous Women, the podcast, is all about hearing the inspirational stories and wisdom of the women, the marvellous women that are all around us every day. And it is one of my very favourite things to do. So the guest on this episode actually is a recommendation from a prior guest. So I got a message saying you need to talk to this person. So I'm really glad to be sharing this guest with you today. My guest on this episode, one of her favorite things to do is to find the soul in everything that she does. Enjoy. Welcome to Marvellous Women, the podcast. On this episode, we have the wonderful Merle Singer. Merle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And I'm very glad to have you here so that we can all learn more about you. So let's just jump straight in. Merle, who are you?
You know, I have thought about this, Sam, before we begin to speak. And I think, I thought it is a complex and multi-layered reflection, which I think it is for most people. I always think, do I think relationally or do I think in terms of internal reflections? And I think my first thing is probably relational. I'm a sister. I am an aunt. I'm a great aunt, actually. I'm a friend. I am a colleague. I'm a facilitator. I'm a coach. I'm an acquaintance. There's a lot of layers in terms of relational engagement. And then, of course, because I'm deeply reflective, overly reflective, I think I view myself in terms of the values that I have. So, and I'm sure I'll forget them and I'll suddenly go, oh, Samantha, there is another value. But I think when I think of my values, I think of how others perceive me rather than just these are my values, because I think values are always lived. So I guess my first one is that I'm very passionate about things. I'm generous, deeply curious, and I think there's a humor that I bring to things. I think one of my values is to find kind of soul in the things that we do and in the way that we engage with others. I'm pretty expressive, and I think like most migrants, there is a strength and a resilience that comes from many journeys that everyone has. But I think for migrants to be resilient is super important. And I love the process of communicating. So I think that's a big value, that our ability to talk to one another, to be in conversation, I think is important. And I hope that others see me as what I've said. Yeah.
I'm really curious, Merle, when you talked about ways of looking at ourselves, in that kind of internal reflection, that relational view. And I'm wondering, what is it about that relational perspective that fascinates you more than the internal?
The internal fascinates me most of all. Let's be honest. That really does. I think our internal, to come to know oneself, is, in the words of Jung, at least the second part of our life, which I'm firmly in, is to come to know oneself. So let's not think that I don't focus on the self, kind of the reflection, what's happening internally. But I think as we live in the world, we are in relation to others. And I think if all we're doing is internally looking, we can lose sight of the fact that we are in social gatherings. We are connected. We're deeply connected to one another. And I think that the roles that we play are really important, and how we wear those roles and how we relate to them are really important. Yeah.
It's almost like there's a symbiotic relationship with us and others around us. So we are who we are because of other people.
Yes.
Other people are who they are because of, oh, wow, we're getting really philosophical, aren't we? Other people are who they are because of us. And
Yes.
so there's that whole, I mean, that whole, symbiosis and synchrony and contagion is a thing.
Yes.
And that's, I suppose, how the whole we are how we are because of nature or nurture. And of course, we know it's a combination of both.
Yes. Yes. And I think I think that idea of, we are how others see us, how others relate to us, and likewise, our impact on others. Also creates their reality, creates the way they are in the world. So I think these things, and I love that it's symbiotic, because that's really what it is. We really are engaged with others. It's if you've been in a conversation with somebody that you dearly love, and it's been a really interesting or funny or warm or engaging or reflective conversation, we feel really filled up with that engagement. And that is not just, I don't believe, it's not just about the conversation, but it is actually about our sense of connection. And
Yeah.
the conversation is another layer on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. So your curiosity that you have, you mentioned, is one of your values. Is there anything that is really driving your curiosity right now? I don't mean right now in this moment. I mean kind of like contemporary.
I think there's a natural curiosity in actually the human condition, both mine and others. And I think that's been a driver pretty much all of my life. So I am interested in not the workings of things. I've never been interested in that, although I'm completely absorbed with what it means to be a scientist, which is completely the antithesis of who I am. So I think that the curiosity is, I want to learn things. I want to feel things. I want to learn things. I want to be transformed by things. And I'm interested. So I don't think there's a single driver. I think that is just how I come to my world, deeply curious.
And I think that's a really interesting tie back to we are who we are because of others around us. And so when you are curious, it is like a sponge, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning things from other people and I'm sucking it in and I'm kind of putting my own spin on it so that I can make sense of it.
Yeah.
And then I can share it with others as and if the circumstance allows
Yes.
for that.
Yes. And I think that the idea of sense making is really important. And I think it's important for all of us. We do it in different ways, but we try and make sense of our internal world, our external world, and the much bigger world that we live in. And I think, many of us are experiencing kind of the turbulence that sits outside in the world. And you can only, for me, so that I'm not, in constant dread, you have to make sense really close to you. And I think that that is in our daily relationships, in our connections, in the thoughts that we hold about others, about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this concept of a value that you have around finding the soul in things? I think that's such an interesting way of framing a perspective to live your life by. How can I find the soul in that? What is kind of behind that? What is it that you're looking for and why?
Wow. That's a big question. I think for me, when I'm thinking about what it means to be soulful, it is an attempt not to be swayed every day, which I tend to be, by my thoughts. I'm anxious about this, I'm, upset about something, but to find a kind of, if not the lessons in the dailiness, to see it as the journey. And before we started the podcast, we spoke about the journey, not the destination. This is not something that I'm able to do like I'm the Buddha and I understand, soulful engagement. But I think there is something really for me in the way that as I've got older, I've tried to do a little bit more, is to attempt not to be swayed moment by moment, which I tend to by my internal emotional stuff. So I think that's a big thing. And I think the second thing, when I feel like my soul is filled up, it's when I've done something with both purpose and impact. So it feels there is a purpose to the work or the engagement that I've had, and there has been an impact, a positive impact and it might not be about someone else, could be about you, could be walking in nature, it doesn't really matter what it is, but we feel filled up. And it's not filled up in our head or just in our heart. It feels like an embodiment of. I'm not sure if that answers it.
Yeah, look, I think it does, but I still have a couple of questions if I
Yeah, of
may.
course.
Again, like your good self, I have a very deep sense of curiosity, which does sometimes get me in trouble. I think this is really important. So we're recording this, it's early December. And I think at this time of year, there is so much that's going on. You're thinking about, what is happening today, what's just happened, what's happened in the past. It's coming to the end of the year, which always makes us reflective. But we're also thinking about, the holidays that are to come. What are the things we're going to do? How am I going to celebrate? But I need to take a break, but I need to do all of things. And I need to do a spring clean of it. Like, it is relentless. And so when you talk about how can we find the lessons in the dailiness so that it can actually make us feel more grounded rather than swaying from this to that, especially in this turbulence, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how can we do that when we're feel sometimes like we're maybe not in the middle of, but a storm is coming, a tornado is coming. How do you find the lessons in the dailiness to be able to ground yourself and not get swept away with the tornado?
Well, for me, with great difficulty, actually.
Yeah.
I think this time of year particularly, there is, as you say, it's a deeply reflective time. It is also, and I think we spoke about the amount of social gatherings I have on my horizon. And I think journaling for me is important. And I wish I would say I do it every day and I'm thoughtful about it, but I don't. What I try and do is every day just write the really small, and I'm talking really small, moments that I was grateful for on waking. So not grand gestures, because I think sometimes when it's landed, so even thinking about, I mean, this is a really interesting thing because it gives me food for thought coming up to the silly season, which I think is aptly named.
Very aptly named.
Is to think, how grateful I am that there are enough people in my orbit who actually are choosing to spend time with me, that I have the wherewithal to go and have a drink with someone, that I can, gobble delicious food, that that I live in a country that allows me to do this with great ease. That, I think we forget about these things. I certainly do. I really go, oh, there's so many things I have to do, and we kind of lose ourselves. But I think there is something, and I'm going to do this, thank you. I'm going to do this as I lead up to and after each of the social engagements, why that person was important to me, why even me being flustered because I couldn't get a Uber or a taxi and I'm going to be late. It's not the end of the world. So,
Yeah. And what a luxury to be able to have the opportunity to be in this uncomfortable situation of having to do these things. What a luxury.
If that is the worst thing that happens to you, I actually said that to somebody the other day. I'd gone to, I mean, this is just, I'm not sure this is soulful, probably sounds a little like, oh, snappy, but I had gone to the wrong Pilates class. And one of the women said to me, oh, you must be so embarrassed. And I said, if that is my worst embarrassment, how lucky am I? It just came out. I didn't mean to come up, but I thought, I'm not embarrassed. That's, my reflection is I'm, a creature of habit. I just thought I was in that particular Pilates class. So, yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a really interesting comment that person made. Like, why is that embarrassing?
Or I didn't ask, but I did think, wow, how lucky would she be that would be her most embarrassing moment? That would be
Amazing.
I want
She
to
hasn't lived.
I want to go, hey, how fabulous is that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but look, I think that's a really good point about, we often think about how are we being put out or what are we being subjected to that makes us feel uncomfortable, but actually we're really lucky to be in that. Really lucky to
We
be
are
in that.
we are super fortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have good fortune. And I
very
think that
much.
helps, even in the good or the bad or the indifferent, to find moments. Sam, I do not do this on a daily basis, just so we know.
What, go to the wrong Pilates class?
Oh no, that I don't do. But neither do I, sit like meditating in perfect stillness. But I think when I remind myself
Yeah.
about the many great gifts, and I think that's why in the morning it is a lovely, lovely start to what am I
Yeah.
grateful for?
Why do you think it is so hard for us to, I mean, this is very much an existential question, but like, why is it that it's so hard for us to think about the things that we're grateful for? Why do we have to do that so deliberately? And yet it's so easy to think about the things that we've been subjected to or the things that are maybe negative around us. What is that about our human condition that makes us easily recall? I mean, it is our human condition, but
It is.
why is it so hard to think positively?
Well, I think that, people say you only learn from, a tough situation, which unfortunately is often really the truth of it. It's where we build our resilience. It's where
Yes.
we build our courage. It's where we build our strength.
Mm.
And I think there is, and I'm not sure, somebody who knows a lot more about kind of the development of the human brain, but we have a very strong reptilian brain, none of that original fight and flight stuff. And I think that it gets activated, and it gets activated quickly. And
Yeah.
we stay in that, I think a lot of us stay in that regularly and often, and we kind of it's an overwhelm. You have to be really thoughtful, I think, to get
Yeah.
to the moments, the moments that you can go, okay, well, that wasn't fun, but was interesting or thought-provoking or
Mm.
I think it's difficult. And I think it is, I always say to people, I'm not a great summer person. I hate to say that in this country, but I'm not. I like winter and cold and the whole thing.
So you're having a great time right now.
No, it's beautiful today. Bright blue skies. It's cool. It's gorgeous. No, I couldn't be happier. No, it's humidity. It's humidity that does it to me. But I always say, imagine if we could just to show how we experience things. If I said to myself now, imagine you are in Alaska and it's the middle of winter. I can't imagine that. I mean, I can see it. I can draw an image of it. I can watch something on TV, which I am, true detective. I'm very late to the piece. I'm watching the one set in Alaska. It looks very, very
Good show.
cold. Looks very,
It
very,
does.
very cold. But I can't imagine, I can't feel that. I can't embody that.
Mm,
And I go, that's always a fascinating thought for me. How
mm.
is it that we know heat and cold so well? And yet when I'm ask myself to transport myself to something, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
Mhm. Really fascinating. I was thinking before as you were talking about, identifying what's that thing that we could be grateful for and trying to be consciously thinking about a positive perspective even when we're having a hard time. And that's kind of almost like, what's the silver lining? What's the
Uh,
silver lining in this? And I think that there's a silver lining in absolutely everything.
yes.
And that might be an easy way for people who are listening to this to think about if I've, had something really terrible that, has gone on, what is the silver lining?
I also think so that it doesn't, for me, isn't like um, too Pollyanna-ish. I
Yeah.
think it's very difficult. We often think about, what am I learning? What's my lesson here? I don't know what one's lesson is, and I don't even know what we're learning. I certainly don't know half the time what I'm learning or what my lesson is. I think that experiencing what you experience fully in the present is very, very important. That's for me. I saw something and I can't remember where. It's fairly recent, but I've printed it and I'm just going to look to the side here. But I thought this resonated with me, which is no amount of regret will change the past. No amount of anxiety will change the future, one that could be a mantra for me. But
Yeah.
any amount of gratitude will change the present. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know
Yeah.
anything, but I've got it on big letters on.
I love that.
I do love that because we often, and I mean, this is definitely a psychological thing. We often spend a lot of time what could have been, what should have been, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of backward looking. Or we're like, I hope it works. What's going to happen? What will happen next?
Yeah.
We don't spend that much time just present going, gee, we're talking. I'm very happy that we've got this opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
I think there really is something in that, and drawing back to the silly season and kind of, getting yourself grounded and, looking for the lessons in the dailiness. I think that is a really great, almost like but you said a mantra. I think that's a really awesome mantra, and I'm going to take that one, Mel.
I love it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
Just
that would be great.
yeah, it's in 48 point on
That you can't miss that.
well, actually with how bad my eyesight is, I could possibly. So
So, but the question that I was going to ask you, we seem to be synchronized. My question I was going to ask you is, what are some quotes or wisdom that speak to you? And then you've just brought that out, which is fantastic. Are there any Merlisms, any of
Ooh,
your own, anything that you often will be saying to people that is from you?
this is as good as it gets today. And I think for women, actually, this is an interesting one because I've been going through photographs, just doing a whole bunch of things. And um, when I see my 30-year-old self or even my 40-year-old self, and actually she was very beautiful, but not internally. That was not the view that I had. And so now, as close to dinosaur age, was with two very close girlfriends on Saturday, and we said, you now have to look in the mirror and go, I am so fabulous. And I think that is something for women and men, but certainly a lot of women that I know, this internal critic, beware of her. And it's not it's not a Merlism. It's actually from one of the women who always says, don't be mean to my friend Merle. So it is, so in other words, I would say to you, Samantha, when your internal critic happens, don't be mean to my friend Samantha.
Yeah.
I think that internal critic is, for many people, is much louder, and we give it much more credence than I think we should.
I read somewhere or I saw somewhere about someone who has a name for their internal critic.
Oh,
and the different critics, because we sometimes have different critical voices. There's a different name for each one. And then when that critic pops up, they go, yep, thanks, Jan. I don't need you now. But I love that because it's almost like, that whole name it to tame it. And so when you say that, thanks, Jan,
I've got this. I've got it.
That acknowledging can kind of go, yep, got that. Thank you. Next.
It reminds me of Elizabeth Gilbert does a whole piece on creativity.
Yes.
And she speaks about, somebody I think asked her, how do you have anxiety? Or do you get fearful? And she was like, I'm wrecked by it. So this is how I say when I'm starting a new book, it's like going on a car journey. So I say to my anxiety, you can come with, but you're only allowed to sit in the back of the car.
And you must stay quiet.
You're not allowed to pick the music. You can't decide whether you want it warmer or cooler. You're just coming with.
Yeah.
And you're in the back of the car. And I think that is such a great, it's a real thing to go, I hear you. I know, but this is not helping me. Sometimes I say that, I know, but it's not helping me.
No, I really love that. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people listening to this episode as well. Just that acknowledge, name, if you like, the voice who's sitting in the back. It's like having the kids in the back. And acknowledge it, but don't let it affect you.
Yeah, or just go. And I think sometimes when you say, I just don't want to feel anxious about something, guess what gets bigger and bigger and bigger is the anxiety or the blame or the fear or the grief or whatever. It's just to say, I know you're here and you can come with, but I think I'll be a lot better if I can bring some other things to the table.
I love that. We're almost out of time.
Wow.
But I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
If you were to look up the words marvelous woman in the dictionary, whose face would you see and why?
It would be a collage of women in my life, personally. The eyes of this one, the mouth, the thing of friends and family and sister-in-law, niece. They would all be my late mom. They'd all be as a collage. But if I take it to the meta, and it's just, there are actually two that come up, as you said that. I think is Maya Angelou. Just because there's sass and there's, brilliance and warmth and humor and an engagement with her own pain, and to find humor and gratitude in that. And I think the second person's kind of side by side is Frida Kahlo. Just because I have loved her story, her work also for 100 years. Somebody who put her life into something that has had a legacy. I think she just had the most amount of money paid. Maybe I got getting.
Yes, no, you are correct.
For a painting.
For a painting.
Yeah, still well below men's paintings, but yeah, those are the two that came out.
And I think there's a quote from Frida Kahlo that I think really represents the conversation that we have just had about, you know, putting your critic in the back seat. And that was, be your own muse.
Be your own muse. Hallelujah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fantastic place to say thank you so much, Merle, for sharing your stories, your wisdom, your insights with us today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. Thanks.
Thank you, Merle, for being with us and sharing your wisdom, your stories. And I love that concept of finding the lessons in the dailiness. I think that there's something in that that really is for all of us. This is the last episode that we'll be publishing for 2025. So thank you so much for listening this year. It has been an absolute pleasure. And we've got some amazing, marvelous women to share with you in 2026. So until next time, have a wonderful break and stay marvelous.